What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. This week this video is going to be a tutorial for a pajama set which has a short sleeve button up shirt with a collar and matching bottoms. I'm hoping I can make a pair of trousers and shorts with the amount of fabric I have left. Else I'll just make shorts for now and possibly grab some more fabric and make trouser when it gets cooler later on in the year. If you'd like to see how I make the patterns, how I cut and sew the pajama set, make sure to keep on watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. I say if you have a basic bodice and a basic trouser, grab those, use those. It will just make the process go on a lot quicker. But if you would like to make the pattern from scratch like I plan to do in this video, then just watch this tutorial in its entirety to get the whole gist. Alright, so if you'd like to see how I make this pajama set, make sure to keep on watching and let's get into this video. I'm going to be working with the following materials to create this pajama set. The fabric I've chosen is this gorgeous cotton sunflower print. I have a total of 3 meters and it's nice and breathable for the current weather. I also have some iron-on interfacing which I'll be needing for the collar and my facing pieces on the shirt. I also got myself some buttons in a matching yellow color. I ended up using only about 3 of these because they were on the bigger side. And then for the bottom, I got some elastic that's going to help me fit the waist of the shorts. Now you're going to need the following measurements to create the patterns for these pieces. The first one you need is across your shoulder, and you measure from these points on your shoulder like so. Next up, you need to measure around your bust and then around your waist. You also need to decide on how long you want the top or the shirt to be. I wanted mine to end before my hips, so I worked with a measurement that I was comfortable with. After that, I'm going in here to measure the sleeve. I opted for a short sleeve that stops before my elbow. I'll also need to measure around my hips like so, and then after doing that I'll be measuring around my thigh because I'm making some shorts and trouser. Now I'm going in to measure how long I want my shorts to be. I wanted them not as long as my knee but a little bit longer so it's decent, as well as deciding on how long I wanted the trouser to be. Now the last measurement you need is your crotch depth, and you get this by sitting on a chair and measuring from your waist to the very point that your butt hits the seat. Now we're going to be starting off with the top or the shirt, and I will be starting with the front plan before moving on to the back and the sleeve in this video. Now I'm just starting off by drawing a long vertical line which will become my center front line, and along this line I've marked the length of my top, and from the shoulder point I'm marking the vertical distance from my shoulder to my bust, and then I'm squaring this across because this will help me to mark my bust line later on. Then I'm going in here to draw the hemline out like so I have that in place ready to work with. Now I'm just going in here to square across my shoulder point because this will help me draw in the neckline of the top. Now across the shoulder I am marking half of my across shoulder measurement in place, and then along the bust I'm marking 1/4 of my bust measurement plus half an inch, so the shirt is on a loose side. So I'm going to my shoulder point and I'm marking half an inch below our cross shoulder dimension, and then the shoulder width itself is 3.5 inches towards the center front edge. Then I'm going to connect those points together to give me my shoulder seam. Now the neckline is roughly 7 inches below the shoulder point. I think I worked with 8 inches at this point, and then I just connected them in place, and it's more of a V neckline because it's going to become a shirt situation when I am done. Next up, I'm marking 1 inch above the bust line, lifting that up a little bit, and then I'm going to draw in the front arm curve. Now the front arm curve is usually a lot more curved compared to the back, and my pattern master just helps me draw the right dimension. Now I'm just going in here to draw my side seam, which is literally a straight line from the bust to the hem, before going in to extend my center front edge by 2 inches. This is going to help me create the button stand where my button and buttonholes are going to sit. I'm just extending my hemline to meet that extension like so. And then for this particular top edge, I'm drawing a slanted line that goes in this direction, and then I'm going to be planning in the collar on the other side of the neckline. Now the collar goes from the front to the back, and the first part of it goes in this direction, and it is about 2 inches wide. So once we've planned this side of the Riviere collar, I'm just indicating where the shoulder seam is, and then we need to extend the collar by an additional 10 centimeters or 4 inches. This, by the time you trace off onto another pattern paper, you'll be able to stitch back into the neckline when you're joining all your pieces together. Now it's worthy of note that that center back edge is curved outwards, so it's easier to roll the collar downwards a lot easier. So now that we have our Riviere collar in place, that extension to become our button and buttonhole stand, I'm going to plan the front facing, which is going to help me finish the collar of this piece. Now the facing itself is 1.5 inches wide, and it's essentially just a piece that is going to sit into that front edge like so. So this completes the front plan. You just need to go in to trace off 3 pattern pieces here. You need to trace off the collar, you need to trace off this front main piece that has the extended bit included, and then you need to add a 1 centimeter seam allowance or half an inch seam allowance all the way around, a hem allowance of 1 or 2 inches depending on you, and then you need to trace off your facing piece as well, which is essentially just the extended bit plus the additional 1.5 we drew inwards, as well as trace off your facing. Just remember to add seam allowances where necessary, because that's what will help you connect the pieces together. Moving on to the back patterns, I'm going in here to plan the neckline and the arm curve. The back neckline is 2 inches below the shoulder point, and that I'm going to connect to the shoulder edge like so. So we have the back neckline in place. As for the back facing, it is about 2 inches wide, and facings always have to connect on the shoulder point, so it's the same width as the front facing. Now the blue line is for the back patterns and the green is for the front, so there's no confusion. Now I'm just going in here to draw in the back arm curve, which is usually shallower than the front. Now that we have the back plan and changes in place, I'm going to trace off the back facing and the back piece itself, which is essentially just that center front edge without any seam allowance, because we're going to be cutting the back of the shirt on a fold. And I went ahead to add a 1 centimeter seam allowance along the neckline, the shoulder, the arm, the side, and a 2 centimeter or 1 inch hem allowance along the bottom. Now for the back facing, there is no seam allowance on that center back edge because we'll be cutting that on a fold as well, and a 1 centimeter seam allowance was added around the neckline, the shoulder seam, and the bottom. So the next piece I'm going to be working on is the sleeve, and I'm going to be doing this in a very interesting way. So I folded a piece of paper in half like so, and I'm going to be ensuring that the distance from the edge to the folded side is the width of the sleeve, so it's wide enough to go and it's comfortable enough as I want it to be. So I'm just going in here to trace along the front arm curve first, marking any notched points and shoulder seam in place. Then I'm going to open the paper and mark the back arm curve on this side like so, ensuring that the width is whatever desired width you want it to be. And now I'm just tracing off that back arm curve, ensuring I mark the side seam edge and the shoulder points in place. Now the way I'm going to draw that top arm curve is I'm going to use this curved side of my pattern master and draw a sleeve head that goes from one side to the top of the sleeve, flip my pattern master and repeat the same thing on the other side. If you measure the amount that goes upward, it should be roughly the same as the amount that you've curved inwards, so that way you know the sleeve would actually fit into the arm curve. Now the sleeve itself is roughly 11 inches because it's a short sleeve. That I'm just marking vertically like so before going ahead to square this across. And then the sleeve width itself is 15 inches, and I'm just marking this on both sides of my sleeve before drawing in my side seams on the left and on the right hand side. And once I have those main lines in place, I'm going to add my seam allowance all around this pattern and a hem allowance of 1 inch or roughly 2 centimeters, my annotations, my grain lines, any other necessary information, and cut out this piece to have my sleeve pattern. These are all of the patterns I'm going to be needing for the top or the shirt of the pajama. You can always adjust the sleeve to become a longer sleeve if that's what you prefer, but in terms of the front, the back, the facings, as well as a sleeve of choice, which is a short sleeve, these are the ones I'm going to be working with. Now that I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead to create the patterns for the shorts, and I'm going to be creating a short that is above the knee. Now I'm going to be starting off by drawing a long vertical line, which is going to become my side seam for the short, and along that line I'm marking my crouch depth and the vertical distance from my waist to my hip. Now the crouch line usually goes below the hip line, and I'm just going in here to square those points across like so I have them ready in place to mark any 1/4 inch measurements. First up, I'm marking 1/4 of my waist measurement plus 2.5 inches, and along my crouch line I'm going to mark 1/4 of my hip measurement plus 2 inches, and along my hip line 1/4 of my hip measurement plus 1 inch. Now once I have these marked in place, I am going to connect the hip point to the crouch line like so, and then connect the hip line to the waistline. Now once I have this, I'm going next to mark the length of my bottoms, and I worked with 17 inches, and then the width of my shorts is roughly 11 inches. Now once I have those marks, I'm just going in here to draw in the hemline of the shorts like so, and then I'll also go in to draw in that inner leg or inseam line on this side of the shorts. Now the next thing I'm just doing in here is I'm adding an additional 1/2 inch ease, which is optional, you don't have to. I just want my shorts to be extra loose around the leg, and then along the waist I am shaping it inwards by 1/2 inch, so we have a slanted seam happening here. Now here I'm just marking the midpoint from my waist to my hip because I'm going to be slashing and spreading this line later on to create the back shorts pattern. So once we have this all planned and you're happy with the fit of your shorts, I went ahead to add a 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way around and a 2 centimeter hem allowance on the bottom. And I'm just going in here to cut out the front shorts so it will be easier for me to create the pattern for the back. Now on the back, I have slashed along that midpoint that we drew earlier on, which is here, and I'm going to be spreading it by 1.5 inches upwards. It's important that you spread it upwards so you have the waistline lifted on the center back short. Now once you have that in place, I'm just going in to draw the center back edge for the back pattern. I'm going to draw the side seam as well as extend the crouch line by 2 inches and drop it by 1/2 inch. This would allow the back shorts to fit a lot easier around your hip and around your bum. And I'm just going in here to draw that inseam or inner leg seam for the back, draw my side seam as mentioned earlier on, the waistline, and mark the points for any other information I want to transfer to the back of the shorts. And I'm just going in here to connect points together so I have my entire back short pattern ready to be cut out and to be used to cut the fabric later on in this project. So these are the short patterns. You should end up with 2, the back and the front, and the waistline is extended to accommodate a tunnel that would have the elastic band going through. And with that, we'll conclude the pattern segment of this project. In my next video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I cut this pattern onto fabric and stitch everything together to create this gorgeous pajama set. I worked and I was like, why does this look like I'm going to Hawaii on holiday? It has a like holiday Hawaiian feel, and it even makes for like a really casual like shirt jacket situation. If the sleeves are long and the collar was thicker, this would have easily been like a summer jacket, but that's the feel so far.